Well, good morning again. Nice to say good morning. This week, I'd like to explore aspects of being in community, and specifically this community of Two Rivers Unitarian Universalist. Some of you are here for the very first time, so this will be a sort of introduction to this interesting and perhaps puzzling place you've wandered into. For others, you've been part of TRUU for months or years. But still, how often do we really stop and think about the quality and characteristics of something we're part of? Mostly, I'd say, we think, oh, I like the people, or I like the sermons, or this is just what we do on a Sunday morning, or no, tried it a couple times, wasn't for me. You aren't the ones here this morning, obviously. We live in a society with a tremendous freedom of association. So we can choose where and with whom we want to spend our time. We do this kind of instinctive feeling into, is this where I want to be? With everything we are part of. Clubs, fraternal organizations, hiking groups, churches, synagogues. Even if we've been part of them for years, that process continues. Is this where I want to be? In the beginning, you can easily be swayed to leave or stay by first impressions. But over time, relationships develop, and a particular community becomes dear to you, becomes part of you. Still, even then, sometimes people outgrow or become dissatisfied with what once truly nourished them. Or the community changes in ways that no longer speak to us or to who we are. This is very natural, and I think we should trust it. We should trust our instinct about where we need to be. And this is even more true of religious and spiritual community, because these kinds of communities matter to us at a different level. Religious or spiritual community is about an ongoing exploration and encounter with what in Zen we call the great matter. Birth, death, and how to live the life in between these two momentous events. And because of that, when religious communities are troubled or unhealthy, they can hurt us to the core. For instance, I know that many of you here were raised Catholic or Baptist or in some other religious tradition, and at some point in your life, the religious community of your childhood no longer nourished your spirit. In fact, for some of you, it might have felt like a matter of life or death to leave that community and to find some freedom from ways of thinking or being that felt harmful to you or didn't speak to your deepest longings. Sometimes people never find religious community. People tell me, as I think Seth would a few years ago, my church is in the woods. Sometimes they find Unitarian Universalism. They look hard enough. And UUs, more than people in traditional Christian denominations, do come to church freely. There is no risk of hell for us if we don't attend church. And amazingly, here you all are. Apparently, there are other reasons to come to church. And I am grateful for your commitment and energy, which keeps this community vital and strong. So what makes a healthy community? I think we all have our own answers to that question, but I would say that a healthy community inspires people to take care of one another and the larger world, creates ways to grow as leaders and in your own spirit, no matter what your age, young or old, treats each person with respect and kindness, and is truly, truly open and welcoming to those who are searching. And a UU community is a place where people come together to help each other live by our very highest values. Values of freedom, peace, justice, as well as nurturing a circle of fellow seekers on the path to greater wisdom, compassion, love, which is, after all, a lifelong path. And we need help on it from each other. So what I'd like to do for the rest of my time this morning is hold up a kind of mirror to you, to the community of TRUU. What makes this particular community what it is? I've been here 5 months, and although that's not long enough to know everything, it is long enough for me to have an inkling of who you are. Perhaps it will cause you to think about why you come here, what you find here. And I hope it will start a few conversations after you're done blushing with all of my compliments. So I'm fascinated by the stories people tell about how they got here, like the one we heard from Seth, by what circuitous or serendipitous route. Sandy Reef, for instance, supported her local Unitarian church back in Pittsburgh for years without ever attending. This is true. Because back in the day when Pete Seeger was actually blacklisted during the McCarthy era, the Unitarian Church was the only place that would allow him to play. And it wasn't until she came here to Carbondale that she found TRUU. A visitor recently told me that she was only attending church voluntarily for the second time in her life. I think she was more than a little shocked to be here at all. I think about my own experience, raised UU, but needing the spiritual practices of Buddhism, and only finding my way back as an adult because of the exquisite kindness and openness of a greeter at the Flagstaff UU congregation at a very difficult time in my life. So I want to just remind us all that when you speak kindly to a visitor or reach out, you never know what's going to come of it. They might end up a minister. So 5 months ago, I arrived here, sight unseen, except for Skype, in June. The dance of a potential minister in a congregation is quite mysterious. In this case, the board had not been able to find a minister for this year, and I think they were getting just a little bit desperate. And here's how I first heard about TRUU. I was having a chat on the phone with a friend of mine who's a UU minister, Amy Rowland, and I was trying to get some advice about going into contract ministry. And she said, "You are applying to Carbondale, right?" I said, "Carbondale?" I had no idea where Carbondale was. I had no idea that Carbondale was looking for a minister. It was completely not on my radar. Through the whole rest of the conversation, she kept saying, "Oh my, you would be such a perfect match for them. They're so great. They're so sweet and warm and creative and energetic. I just love those people in that congregation." Some of you who've been here for a little while know why she appreciated you so much. She was the minister here in the year before Stephan Papa arrived. Remarkably, everyone else I talked to about you said more or less the same things. I don't know if they'd gotten a cheat sheet from the board or what, but the same words kept coming up over and over again. creative, energetic, sweet, kind, warm. Now that's pretty irresistible to a potential minister. It's not true of all UU congregations. Some people can attest. But could it actually be true? So from the very beginning, when I arrived in August, I found out that sweet was very accurate. The first week, I was taken on a hike up to Avalanche Creek and then to Penny Hot Springs by the entire Brown family, and had more invitations to concerts and other things to do than I knew what to do with. Now you might think that was just because I had just arrived, but it's continued. Some of you have taken me cross-country skiing, some of you have invited me to dinner, driven me to the bus, and even taken me in for the night when I got here by train and discovered that my house keys were in San Francisco. And just last Friday, I went up to the Sunlight Ski Area, thanks to Amy Barr, and had, I can hardly believe this, ski lessons from 3 great TRUU skiers, Nicolette and Heather and Greg Rydell, who were willing to stay with me all day as I stumbled around on the green runs, instead of being out there where they could be on their double black diamonds or whatever. And I had such a wonderful time, and I felt so held by them. They actually would stay behind me as I was going down the run to keep me from being run over by the snowboarders, risking their own lives. Well, you might say, they're just so nice because you're the minister. But I've heard plenty of stories of people moving here, finding TRUU, and being taken in a similar fashion. So I think it's really just part of who you are. You are good to one another. And I hope you will always be, even as you grow, because it's just beautiful, and it will touch many people if you can keep that spirit alive. So, sweet? Check. Yes, definitely. Energetic? Definitely. How about creative? Well, I think we've been witnessing it today as one congregant after another has been coming up to sing and perform. But also, if you've attended one of TRUU's winter solstice celebrations, community celebrations, which is a collaboration with Davy Nikent, you've witnessed an unparalleled example of spirited creativity. Costumes, masks, music, drumming, singing, dancing, all created by people in this community from TRUU and also from the larger, highly creative Carbondale world. And every week I have the privilege of collaborating with Jimmy Byrne, who I can't see through these flowers. Oh, there he is. All right, good. Oh, he moved. With his vast store of songs and soulful, heartfelt musicality. So we create services together where what we try is to have every song and spoken word reflect one another and speak to one another. I hope you experience that a little. So what other adjectives would I use after 5 months of being here? One that comes to mind is determined. And a beautiful example of that is what is happening after this service today. This congregation, like many small UU congregations and other churches in Carbondale actually, have endured a kind of revolving door in ministry. There have been 4 ministers here in 5 years. And I just have to say, I do know this is true of other congregations. I was talking to a local Catholic who said, you know, usually we get either priests who are wet behind the ears or have 1 foot in the grave. I think I'm in the wet behind the ears category, but hopefully not 1 foot in the grave. But I am the first minister of TRUU to actually live here Partly because up until now, the position has been part-time, and partly because the cost of living here is so extremely high. So, some communities might just despair at this situation. Not you. After this service, if you are a member of TRUU, you will have the opportunity to vote on something quite momentous in the history of this congregation. You will actually be making the history of this congregation. Supporting your board in proceeding with the purchase of a home for your future ministers. This is a huge decision, and I am so proud of the board and some of the people in this congregation, particularly Jim Calloway, for their work, and I mean work, to make this happen, setting a very strong foundation for long-term, full-time ministry here. The next step in your flowering as a congregation, and a big step. And I also just want to say, the same board voted to give part of our offering today to the Carbondale Homeless Assistance Group. This means a lot to me personally. Yesterday was the memorial back in Washington of a young man whose family I know very well. He was mentally ill and homeless, and he died on Christmas Eve from complications due to exposure. So your offering today means a lot to me. As UUs, we know that we are all interdependent, and we are always called to take care of our larger community, even as we build a strong home for our own hearts and spirits. The final word I would use to describe you, TRUU, beautiful. Just like the beauty of this valley, the beauty of that great calm mountain up there, the clear flowing of the rivers meeting, the aspens in their golden brilliance in the fall. I wore this to remind us of the aspens. So please don't forget that you're beautiful. As Nicolette read to us, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. We are all meant to shine. So TRUU, if I can offer my own prayer to you as you go forward, it would be that you let your light shine as a light of hope and justice in a world that really needs all the light we can make. Don't play small and keep shining.